see you.
Uh,
And uh, you look even better than the last couple of times I've seen you.
yes, well, I don't, it varies, doesn't it? It depends on what you're doing. I mean, working on the daytime show was stressful because of the pace. But, I've been doing other things. So my mind is in a different kind of operative state, especially exploring stories that I want to write about. Um,
So before we go back, and we're going to talk about seducing celebrities and the fact that you've had a new release with the soft cover and you're out doing that again. Um, what else are you working on? You're writing something, and you have your podcast. And
my podcast, I wrote a biblical story that I want to do.
a
And
biblical story. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
hmm,
No, you don't have to.
well, let me put it this way. When we come at Christmas time, everything looks like a postcard. The truth of the matter, after the explorations I made, especially in Persia, it's not
Ah,
correct. Also,
ah.
when the wise man went to the manger, he was not a baby in the manger. By the time they got there, he was almost two. That's why we had the massacre of the innocents by Herod's proclamation, he was already almost two because Herod had proclaimed that those kill every male under the age of two. It didn't say every child, every male under the age of two. So by the time they got there, it was a different place. But we made it look prettier by in the manger and the animals, and so I like the idea that
So you're going to tell us the truth?
yeah,
Ah, and the
uh,
truth isn't so pretty.
it's not that it's not so pretty. It's what happened before all that.
Ah,
That's what is the history before all that. I went to when I went to Egypt, I took a journey for 2 weeks up and down the Nile exploring all the destinations that the Holy Family had hid from Herod in between 1 and 4 AD. So it was, it could have, I think it was more 1 and 4 BC. I don't think Christ was really born at that time that we say. I think it was a few years before. And so I really investigated that and went to all these sacred places that the Pope had proclaimed the visits that the Holy Family. There's one particular place that was that they stayed for 6 months. So that's really quite something. And every July, August, all these pilgrims go. And so when we went, it was a massive rock that was cut out and made into a church. And it's amazing what they were able to do with the tools that they had. So you have these humongous columns, and it was just there's something wonderful about the spiritual aspect of life because the people that cross your path who are into that world, there's a wonderful gentleness and respect from them. And the fact that you go to visit and pay respects to the time that that church was built and light candles and keep it alive, they really appreciate you. And so I think I'm a bit spoiled that way. And I've been fortunate. I've been exploring places that have a spiritual significance to them. The only place was when I went to Meteora in Greece, northern Greece, at the monasteries and the nuns. You've heard of the stories of nuns when girls have gone to schools and studied with nuns, and well, they really are tough. And you enter, you're not wearing the right clothes, they will scold you like a grandmother does. So, I love those places. I've been to Sinai, crossed Sinai 3 times, and went to the monasteries there, and went to another one called St. Andrews, where monasticism began. So I've done those treks. And then of course when I go to Cairo, there was, and then up to Luxor, there was this man who said to me, who was a spiritual counselor. He said to me, "So you've been here before?" And I said, "Yes, I've been to Egypt a number of times." "No, no, no, no. I mean before.
oh,
That's why you're so attracted to Egypt. You're constantly looking for that part of your soul that hasn't found God." He said, "Yeah,
I got a taste of this, Thaao, when we were in Italy, and what thrilled me the most about Rome would be walking down the street and then all of a sudden there's a ruin right in front of, like we'd be walking down the street and then there's the Pantheon, and I would just burst out laughing because it was so thrilling. And, just uh, to walk down the streets of Pompeii, it's like, this is just insane
Yeah.
how long ago this was. And
Did you go to the Naples Museum?
we did not go into Naples. We did
Ah,
not go into Naples. No, I've heard that it's quite something.
but you went to
Um,
Herculaneum? Did you go to Herculaneum?
no, we did not go to Herculaneum. We just went to Pompeii on the way back. We spent 6 days in Rome, 9 days in Florence, a few days in Venice. I was sick and then we went down to Positano and we came back up through Pompeii. But Rome really intrigued me because of those ruins everywhere. It took my breath away every time. And then we took a walking tour through Florence, and this wonderful woman who has spent 45 years being a historian there was explaining the significance of everything and why the streets are labeled the way they are, and the relationship that people have with the church and why there are these holy figures and the like. She explained it. And so our respect for what you're talking about, it's just, I have a whole new understanding, a whole new respect, and an appreciation. But Egypt, Snuffy really wants to go to Egypt, and Egypt totally scares me now as a woman, as a Jewish woman. Have you traveled to Egypt with women
Yes.
of late?
Oh, yeah. A few years ago, I went with Lisa Hayes. They were intrigued by her because she was a blonde. You don't see that so much in Egypt.
Right.
So the men were very attracted and curious. But no, there was no problems at all. They were very respectful because, it depends on how you dress and how you approach
Sure.
people. There are those people who like to be bargain hunters and they just drive anybody crazy. But they, there's just a different kind of a breed. But the Egypt is, to me, they want tourism. I mean, they can't afford. They've had that experience when they had that. All those tours got annihilated in Luxor in 97, where they killed so many people, and then tourism in Egypt died for about 5 years. So now they've got the new museum opening in Giza, and it's the biggest museum in the world. For tourists, I mean, I called my friends who are my guides, and they're always saying, "Are you okay? Are you okay?" They said that there's hardly any tourism because of the war in Giza. I mean, in Gaza.
Uh-huh.
So they're suffering. Plus, climate. Usually, this heat, which is, he told me, it was almost 50 degrees Celsius, which is about 130 degrees.
Right.
You can't walk in that. I mean, it'll hit you, and it's like fire is right in your face. So he said that's also stopped tourism, and so they're suffering over there. But boys do that.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, okay, so Egypt I am Egypt. Greece is the next place I want to go. I've never been. So before I travel to Greece, unlike when I went to Italy, I will be calling you to get all the information on where to go and where to eat and all of that good stuff.
What do you do next year?
So maybe next year. Yeah, maybe that'll be our trip next year. I don't know that we spent a whole month in Italy. I don't know that we'll have that kind of luxury again, but
well, I would suggest to go in May.
Okay, now we thought we were very smart going at the end of April to Rome. It was packed. We couldn't even get close enough to the Trevi Fountain to throw our coins in. It was packed in the end of April. Where are all these tourists coming from? It was crazy.
Well, Europe is there, and it's easy. People can drive to Greece. It's but we've got, yes, too much tourism, and I hate flying now because everybody brings their beds and all the rest of their hoopla onto the plane. It used to be, you had a small, narrow case that you're allowed to bring on. Now they bring all their bags on because then they charge them, so they make money. So it's not, and so when you try to make an exit, the line is so long, and by they take their bags down one after the other, it's 20 minutes to get out of the plane, right? So it's all changed, traveling. I remember when I traveled, it was a luxury. But now I think the 4 years of COVID, I think had made people just die to go anywhere, and so this.
Maybe that's what it is. Maybe it's that we were in our homes for so long. I forgot to tell you to turn off your notifications. Do you know how to turn off your notifications on your thing? So I think you have a good point there that perhaps people are traveling so much because we were cooped up for so long that we've all gone a little crazy and we just want to get out.
Excess. It's an excess. And prices. I mean, the prices of things now, it's not just America. I think when people complain and blame Biden for it, when you see what's going on in Europe and how much it costs there,
it's crazy.
Everybody only understands their own backyard. They don't understand what other people are going through. And so, Egypt has gone up tremendously.
Has it?
Well, the value of their pound is really terrific for us. But I think when you go to Greece, I would say you'd land in Athens and just see a couple of the museums and go climb the Acropolis. But then you'd go to the island, a couple of islands.
So what are your favorite islands? I mean, I always read about Mykonos, and I don't know.
No.
So what are your favorite?
Even though it gets crowded, especially in Ia, there's nothing like it. When you look at the history of it and how in 1500 BC, 2/3 of the island collapsed and went under, and a tidal wave the size that we've never ever seen before, actually by the time it reached Egypt. So when you look at this kind of semicircle high up, and you've never seen, it's the only place in the world I've ever been where they applaud a sunset.
Oh,
how do you applaud a sunset? Well, it's that extraordinary.
Wow.
And when you see what's around it, the scope of it all, and the restaurants are fantastic. And, the beach, because it's a volcanic island, the beaches are black sand,
I saw black sand in Kona. It was very unusual, black sand. Yeah.
But in Santorini, the sand has been sort of brought down to just sand. It's not as like in Kona.
It's not as rock.
No, it's not rock. You can lie over it. But the extraordinary thing is the water is cold, where it's hot out. So it's a wonderful contrast. And you eat at all hours. I mean, it's just extraordinary, the food there. And it's just, what do? You just walk around, lots of good shopping.
Shopping is good.
The history of it. And then you go to a place called Akrotiri, which was, they never knew what happened when that volcano, which is still alive, when that collapsed into the sea. They didn't realize at the end of on the left-hand side of the island, Akrotiri, they started to dig and they found where the main city was. And they have now found an entire city, half of it's in the sea.
Is it? Oh, in the sea. But is there some of it like Pompeii where they've restored some of it?
Oh, yes. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Pompeii was, 1st, 2nd, 3rd century BC, 1st century AD. Whereas Akrotiri, we're talking 1500 BC.
Oh, my.
So you see actually houses and the original paint and you Google all this so you can educate yourself, as to what happened with that island.
Wow.
And how that affected the time of Moses, that earthquake, that tidal wave. So it's got a fascinating history. And Cameron, the director, did a documentary on it, a 2-hour documentary about how that affected the time of where Ramesses II, if he was the true pharaoh at the time, when that tidal wave came all the way across, and how it affected in the ocean all the iron ore because of that heat, and that wave brought it all up, and so it turned the sea red. The
Wow.
frogs jumped out of the water because of the heat from the tidal wave. So a lot of the stuff that is, part of the biblical
Folklore, as it were.
folklore is right. You see this documentary, and it's just amazing about how everything was formed. And so when you see Santorini and it looks so peaceful, I mean, the last major earthquake there was in 1954. So when you sit at the edge of it, everything is white, everything's on the cliff faces. It's just extraordinary to just take walks in the afternoon, and then you come back and take a shower, and then you go out to a restaurant, and there's just so many wonderful things to do there. So I love Santorini, but I also like Milos. They're all different, the landscapes. I also, I'm trying to think of
Does it make sense to do the Greek islands and then go over to, we didn't go to Sicily. Does it make sense to go over to Sicily from the Greek islands?
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, Sicily is extraordinary,
Yeah.
just the history of it. And there's also, you see the humongous influence that ancient Greeks had, because that's the ruins. They have their Acropolis, their Parthenon. Yeah, it's it's not that far from it all, but
right.
Crete's a wonderful island. You see there where there was the Minoan civilization, and that was around 1400 BC, and that tidal wave they found wiped out the entire civilization.
Wow.
So it was, there's just so much history there. And
so you don't have to spend a lot of time in Athens?
No, not really. I mean, you walk through the Plaka, you go to the Archaeological Museum, and then you go to the wonderful Acropolis Museum. And then you climb up to the Parthenon. That's just wonderful. And, you go around having some wonderful dinners and lunches, and go down to the ocean. It's lovely down in Piraeus, where there are a lot of restaurants there. And I like going for a swim first and then going to a restaurant afterwards, because they give you all that wonderful octopus and the grilled fish and those wonderful salads, and and the wonderful lamb they do.
It sounds absolutely divine. So so your travels, obviously, your travels and your love of archaeology brought you to your podcast, your storytelling, all of these things that you are there going to be more of them?
Well, I was thinking of the biblical story to make that into a podcast, and then I'm hoping to make a film out of it, because, I always think every year it's nice to bring back a film that brings new knowledge to an audience who sort of gave up on things. But it's just, when you discover the Persians and what happened in Persia, 3 wise men, where they came from, all that, is part of the story that I told, and how it paralleled the king of Persia and Herod, because they were both monsters. And so what you had in the middle of it all was the Holy Family, and it kind of balances itself out. But yeah, I mean, I've written a lot of short stories that would be great for podcasts. I have to think about that, because right now I'm in the middle of developing something that I'm very excited about. I've got a new writing partner called Chris Phillips. She's from Australia. She's also Greek. And then we found out that we possibly are related. So I've enjoyed writing with her. She's a bit of a whiz. So, how do you put together when somebody else has some idea and then you come in with another? So I find out what I'm good at, because I remember when I used to work with another writer, she said, where the hell do you get that imagination? And I think it was because in between days of our lives, I would take journeys to Europe, explore different avenues, different cultures, and then bring that. And that used to fill me up. And therefore, the character, lasted all these years, and since 1982.
So, okay, you said it, and people are asking me, okay, why are you, where are you, and why are you not on days anymore? So why don't you tell us since we're here?
Why aren't I on days anymore? Well, firstly, they have to ask you, are they, this particular writer hasn't, they changed the whole programming of days.
How
And
so?
well, they brought in a lot of young ones because it's cheaper.
Mm.
They've kept a few of the vets,
Hmm.
but basically, if you look at the DiMera family, which was such a powerhouse on the show, in contrast to the Hortons and the other families, the Bradys, and then suddenly all that changed. And people come with different points of view. Some writers don't like getting too deep about things. Theirs is a very quick, and you look at
Yeah.
the society of today, and where are we? We're putting out so much material,
Our attention
but is it
spans
the
are
quality
this
we need?
long,
Yeah.
right? Yeah.
Well, yeah, but I think that's also education. How do you
Mm.
educate people? The idea that they're taking phones away from children, I think is a great idea because they don't get a chance to create their imagination.
Mm.
They just look at other people's stuff, instead of exploring their own or
You
the
know, it's really
family.
scary, Thaao. Snuffy's son was showing us this app the other day that is an AI chat app that will actually do your homework for you. It will write for you. I could put in my writing, a page of my book, and then say, write blah, blah, blah in Vicki Abelson's voice, and it will do it. That's terrifying to me.
Well,
Absolutely terrifying.
when everything's become about money and everything's
Mm,
been about convenience and also not empowering you. It's about them telling you what to watch, how to watch, what to imagine,
hmm.
instead of, how did I find what my interests were? It was because I explored. I took the journeys I did because it gave me a sense of, at school, I was taught things. I thought, well, these are a waste of time. I'm not going to do anything with this. Once I came to America, I decided I was going to discover things that I want to discover. And then I decided to like even food. I started to explore the food element, then how it affected my body, and then how I enjoyed it and sharing it with others. The history. I remember the
And
time.
you also studied, you also chose what to study.
Yes. Yeah. So, once I took the journeys and started to look at other cultures that were different to mine or were part of my heritage, my mind started I started to fill myself up with things that, as I say, when you leave that front door, something about you when you return will have changed when you
Mm-hmm.
go through that same door. And
Mm-hmm.
that's because you've taken in another culture. It has to, a lot of people go overseas and then they come back and it's been a holiday. Well, it's never a
Mm-hmm.
holiday for me. I think it can be about everything. And then you can sit with friends at night and over dinner and discuss what you discovered that day or what we're doing tomorrow. And that's how I used to travel, where I used to take friends of mine with me, but I always said to them, study a few days or a week before about where we're going. And then we would go to the place, and then we would have the guide who would take us. And then the day
Right.
after, we would rest. I didn't,
Oh,
I had an in between because I think you need some things,
you have to absorb it.
yes, to settle within you about what it was rather than you just going from, people go from one thing to the other, and they remember nothing.
Mm.
You have to take in what somebody else created.
Mm.
And that's what's so wonderful about museums, where you take kids to museums and you let them stop and ask them and teach them about composition, what the subject matter is, what do they see within that subject. So that part of the beauty of life and education is expanding what we already know. So you go on top of that. And so because I made my choices, I built a foundation that was solid. And so now I'm at an age where I can turn around and share it. Because when I did my book signing, I told them stories, I told them stories about, I gave some humility in the beginning, so it didn't all look like it was easy. How I used to go through alleys and pick up beer bottles and sell them at the bottle shop. And then I used to get that money and give it to my mom, or I used to go to the movie house to see movies. And that's how so I realized that even at 8, 9 years of age, I used to go down to the ocean with a knife and a lemon and bread, and I used to eat the oysters off the rocks. So I thought to myself, I was developing a taste for things in my early days, but it was, how did I explore? So I was kind of I explored. Even
you were an adventurer.
I was, my mother
Yes.
used to say, to look at me and she'd say, "Where do you come from?" And I said, well, what is that?
And your mother was not an adventurous cook, as I recall.
No.
No.
Well, firstly, we didn't have the money to be that adventurous. But I remember when I brought them over to America and I cooked for them. I used to cook for them anyway in Australia, but there was something about, even with my father loved America. He couldn't get over how wide the streets were, because my father came from Greece and was a laborer in Sydney. So he didn't bring much money home. And then out of his unsettled life, he'd go and gamble, or he'd go and, drink with his buddies, but he'd always come home. I remember he was always sad, angry. And because he wasn't fulfilling within him what he came to do.
Did he have, what was his dream? Do you know?
No, his dream was his children. He wanted them to go beyond him, because he felt that he came and it was a new country. It had a different language. He came from a certain society in Greece, and to find that the only work available was labor.
Where are your people from in Greece?
It's an island, Dodecanese Island. It's the one furthest from Greece, closest to Turkey, and it's called Castellorizo. And it's a very small island. It has a Venetian castle on it from the 14th century. I went once. I just felt that all the relatives from Australia, when I went over, were there for the summer. And I thought, I can't get away from them. So it took me a long time to get over and loving back my relatives. Now I love seeing them. I mean, they're different now, because I have fulfilled things in my life that means something, And you can see from, they're bored because they didn't invest in later in life, as far as, I'm not saying money, they've all got money. It's just that they didn't. It's like, I said to my brother, "Don't you love going overseas?" "What happened?" He goes, "If I see one more bloody icon, I'm going to scream." I think to myself, how did you not see something special? When I went to Aios Oros, which was Mount Athos in Greece, there were no women allowed. Here I was sitting with a monk, and right in front of me was a 16th century icon, a big icon.
No women allowed?
No. I'll tell you the story. But right down her eye was all red. And I said to the monk, "What happened there?" He says, a monk became insane, and he went at it and attacked it and stuck the knife into the eye of the Virgin, and it started to bleed.
What?
Yeah. So, there are wonderful stories that you find, and so I come back, I tell that story, or, or the way they eat there is certainly totally different. Everything's fried. And so I refused their food, and the monks got upset with me. And I said, "I'm sorry, I don't like a lot of fried foods,
So, okay, why no women?
Because the Virgin Mary with John the Apostle was going to Cyprus to see another holy man. And what happened, a storm came. And, in the northern part of Greece, there are 3 peninsulas that jut out in the Aegean. And so when the boat hit land, it crashed into an island. It's not an island, it's peninsula. And the Virgin Mary came and stepped onto this island. She saw how magnificent, how beautiful it was. And she said, "This is such a beautiful space. I want it to be called Mary's." island. And so what happened with the monks is that they realized that she was, because it was so sacred, she was the only woman that was ever allowed on that part of the country. And so there's not even female animals. Everything is male.
What? So how do they procreate?
They don't.
They don't. But then how do animals continue existing
Well,
there?
they just keep bringing
They
animals.
just keep bringing
animals. And there was one woman who dressed up as a male and got on that island. It was so sacrilegious, to the monks. They were very upset. So they really check on those things. And so you get, like, when I went at Greek Christmas, which was January 6th, interesting day. January,
yes.
yeah, to say the least. I thought it was so remarkable because at Christmas Eve, which is January 5th, by the old calendar, they bring out all these incredible icons and jewels, like the only belt, only piece of clothing that belonged to the Virgin Mary is in a glass casket, right? All the different jewels. I mean, that's why the Nazis wanted to get in and steal all that jewelry. What was amazing about this story was that belt, which I witnessed and saw. All these men, these pilgrims who came, would come with icons and putting it over so they could have something they feel sacred, Putin had a daughter that was dying of cancer. And we heard about the miracle of this piece of clothing. And because no women were allowed on the island, for the only time, they took that belt in that casket and took it over to the mainland and put it around her and saved her life. And Putin was so taken back that he gave millions to the monastery. So there I was, and I'm watching this thing, this belt, and thinking, wow, it's amazing story. And so the next morning, at Christmas Day, I was with some monks, and they were talking away. And some of these monks are doctors and dentists, and they've decided at this stage of their lives they wanted to stay and just pray to God. That's their life. And some who are wonderful farmers, they've got all types. But I remember what I said. I said to him, he says, Putin, bless him, he gave these monasteries, 24 monasteries on this island, 24, and he goes, and he blessed us and he gave us, and we helped survive us. I said, yeah, but he is an assassin. And he just stared at me, the monk, didn't say a word, and just walked off. And I thought, oh, he goes mouth. I looked at him and I thought, oh, you don't say these things.
You don't say these things.
That's the thing that I find interesting about life is that, we cover things up a lot. And those
okay, so you've touched on a subject that I mentioned before we came on the air. I wanted to talk to you about because I think you can be of great service, Thaao. The last time we chatted, you told me personally that you were going through something, and we didn't talk about it on the air. But since you have come out and talked about it, that you had an illness, which you are now in remission of, but that you did go through cancer. Yeah. And I wanted to talk with you about it on the air because I am so in awe of you. Appear to me, and I don't think it's appear, I think you are fairly fearless. I think you are a very brave, centered, evolved human being. So I'm really curious. And first of all, I don't understand how it happened to you at all, because you eat incredibly healthy. You have an incredible lifestyle, right? You get good rest, you meditate, you exercise, you've done this for years. You eat basically a Mediterranean diet. You don't like junk food. You don't like fried food. Why you? Is it genetics?
I think it's genetics because my mother had it. She died of it.
Oh.
Both sisters had it. One sister had her breast removed. My elder sister said to me, you of all people should not have had this. And I said, why? just because of the way you live. Well, I see you when you come here and the way and how you cook for us, and everything's fresh, and you understand what food you're serving people. You explain to them what's there and what it does for you. So you have the knowledge about how you keep yourself in optimum condition. And I don't know why it happened, but the goodness of it all was that I went to Australia one Christmas only to find out there was something off I felt in my body.
I was going to say, how did you discover that you weren't well?
I just felt something was, my stomach, I have to watch what I combine because I can get bloated easily.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes because of the work and we rush things, or sometimes I'll have bread and, with pasta or something, and that will blow my stomach. And so I just knew there was something off. So when I came back in January of 2020 and COVID started to hit, I went to a doctor and they made some tests, and he said, you have first degree going on to second of colon cancer. And I had never had a colonoscopy or anything.
Oh,
never.
Really?
Yeah. And my brother used to get them every year. And I said, I just didn't do it. And so
was that an arrogant? Why didn't you do that?
The idea of it just didn't appeal,
It's pretty horrible. Yeah. Okay.
It's horrible. It's like going to the dentist,
Worse, kind of. Yeah.
I don't mind the dentist because I keep my teeth pretty well because I have them cleaned every 6 months. So the whole idea that when they said it to me, it was a remarkable experience I had when the doctor said to me, yes, I'm sorry, you have cancer. And he says, we're going to find you a place to go and get treated. And I said, okay. He said, I think you have to do, what do you call it? Chemo and
radiation.
So I called him. I started to think about it. I called him. He didn't return my call for 5 days. I lost it. I called him up and I said, are you a doctor? He says, yes. And I said, you took 5 days to call me back? What kind of a doctor are you? This is how you treat patients? You think it's easy to accept the fact that you said to me that this is what you have and that I'm okay with it, and then I'll just go and do it like something normal? It's not normal, because at my age, that I had nothing wrong with me all these years, nothing. I've never had anything removed out of my body. And I said, and this to hit me at this stage, you gave me no understanding about what I was supposed to go. And because I stood up to him, he said, let me do something for you. Let me get you into a hospital as soon as possible. Within 3 days after we found out everything was kind of booked up, he got me into the hospital at Disney. And so for the next 3 months, I went through radiation and chemo. The chemo was tough.
Okay, wait, before you get to your treatment, were you scared when you found out?
No.
What did you feel?
I felt that, I thought, why this now? I didn't think it was the end.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't think that this was going to, certainly in going into stage 2, how does my body respond to chemo? But no.
Did you feel sick before you started the chemo?
No.
No.
I felt nothing. And I remember the most important thing was the support system.
Mm-hmm.
I had 2 fantastic friends.
Mm-hmm.
They became even more fantastic because they would be here every morning. And as I got into the chemo, I started to get thinner and thinner, and I lost 50 pounds. I used to have to slide.
You losing 50 pounds is...
Yeah, I looked like something from the Holocaust. But what's funny is, as an actor, I don't really look at myself in the mirror until I've had a shower or something and comb my hair, but I don't go around looking to see how I'm looking. I just,
right.
Okay. But what happened was that one day I did, and I saw everything dropped. That was the scariest thing.
Oh,
And I went, wow. And then I remember I was lying in bed with the chemo that they inserted in my arm, and I had to carry for 2 weeks, 24 hours a day. And I remember a phone call came and said that I was nominated for Best Actor. And I thought, oh, okay, there's purpose here. That's how I looked at it. So I said, it's just a matter of getting over this. So how do we do this? So I got back into my nutrition. The one thing I remember a friend of mine saying, he says, you know what was so wonderful? You get into the car, we take you to the hospital, then in the wheelchair, was that you never felt sorry for yourself. And you didn't go into being a victim. And at the same time, you cracked jokes in the car. And I was lucky because the strike was there, so I didn't have to go back to days. And so, but everybody else was going through COVID. I didn't even think about COVID, and I've never had COVID. And so I went to a Chinese doctor. She said to me, "I wish you'd come to me before you got the chemo. I would have prepared your body for it."
wow.
Chinese medicine. I think we can all share things from all different medicines. It's
Absolutely.
not just Western medicine, because sometimes Western medicine, they just cut it off. You know what I mean?
Did you change your diet at all when you found out you had cancer?
Well, not that I ate much meat, but I certainly cut out the meat. I had a lot of fish. I love soups. I made lots of soups. And then they said to me, well, you've got to put up some weight now. So I would have peanut butter and banana sandwiches. I used to go, I found out it was Elvis Presley's famous, favorite sandwich.
Right.
So I went into that, but she said to me, which is interesting, she says, do you know why you're in such good condition? Because you have a strong disposition. That, with all the years before of doing broths and eating well, and even when I had to study, I just studied and I ate well, always. And to me—
But you're also strong disposition here between your ears.
Yes, and also love food. But I love, I'm the guy who does the fish and does every kind of seafood, pasta, linguine, and all the rest of it. That's why I ended up doing the cookbook. But I came out of it one day and I started putting on weight. Except friends who hadn't seen me in a while, when they first saw me, you could see by their expression. That's why I say, get well first before you start inviting some of these people who can't believe when they walk through the door and go, oh, you don't need that.
Yeah, no.
You know what I mean? And then they wanted, because of the Emmy nomination, I had to do a speech on the phone, on a camera. And I had to, because I was still thin, and I had my makeup artist from Days come over, and that was Lauren Koslow's husband. And he made me up so I wouldn't look too thin. And so we shot it, he gave good lighting and everything, and so nobody could see it. And so slowly there was an expression in my
How
eye.
long were you under treatment, and how long did it take you to start feeling like yourself again?
I've never felt like myself again. I think in many ways, something died. And you can't go through all that stuff and not have your body change. So it did affect my stomach. The radiation really killed, and I had to get it back, the digestive tract. I found that until I started exercising, which was so difficult after 6 months, thank God I had a gym downstairs. So things were really hard. It affected my right side. I don't bend as easily on the right. I mean, normally I could walk just normally, nobody would know. But I know, and I know what I have to do before I get out of bed and do all those stretches and be able to move around. There were times where for 10 minutes I could do something, then I have to sit down. Now I can cook, I did for 14 people and I was fine. But, it depends. It's very important the kind of people you have around you. At this stage in my life, I still want those people who look at life winning. I don't want the losers. There's enough of them around. They complain a lot. They criticize a lot. And those unhappy ones, and who you don't tell anything good about what's happened to you because they can't hide their envy. So it's very important, those people. And that taught me a big lesson is, who do you surround yourself as a support system? Because when it's their turn, you're there because you understand how they did it for you. Mm-hmm. So, I have a friend who recently came down with ALS, and an actor I studied with for many years, and we were friends for many years, can't do anything except lie in the bed. Oh. And what was extraordinary about it was he never felt like a victim. And I thought, isn't that interesting? Because I recognized that because of the way I felt. I just thought, this is not going to kill me, but that's going to finish him. Once that starts, that's so. In many ways, a lot of people before me have gone, and those after me have gone. So the surroundings of those people, the good ones, sadly, those who are older, those who taught me what I didn't know, those who like things of quality, those who appreciated.
Do you treat yourself differently now, do you think?
No, not really. I still eat very well. I like my quiet time. I don't like noisy people.
Are you kinder to yourself at all, Thaao? Do you allow yourself more time to sleep, to rest, to...
No. I've got a very active mind. And I always think, what am I doing today? Oh, yeah. Like someone may send me a script to read, and I have to be good about it because I don't like telling people after I've read their material. I try to be like my teacher, Milton, when I showed him a script that I had written with a fellow writer, and he said the beginning of it, when he put it down, he goes, "This is going to be done." So it wasn't like, well, like I went to a manager's place and he read a script that myself and Sherry Anderson wrote, and it was called Fake. And we went in and he wasn't there. And I'm looking around at his office and I'm going, wow, it's okay, So he comes in half an hour late and he says, "I'm terribly sorry that I'm late. I've been sitting in the car wondering how I'm going to talk to you about the script." And he's shaking his head and I thought, oh, this is abysmal. So right away, he said, I don't know what you're going to do with this script. And he started shredding it. And I said, you know what? I looked at him quietly. I said, you know what? Every week there is an agent or manager who thinks he knows he's got the finger on the pulse. But if they did, they'd be sitting in better offices. And he blew up because I was saying to him subtly, "You're not much of a success. Otherwise, you'd be sitting in something more elaborate in this ordinary place." So I said, "So excuse me, I've got to put money in the meter." And I left. And he told the story like 5 years later. He said, after they left, he says, I went hysterical. I couldn't stop laughing. And then I started to cry. And then it made me realize. And so what I did was give him back what he didn't understand, or how do you allow someone, it's like, someone says, oh, you got cancer, you're going to die. No, there are ways to beat things. Are you ready to go? Okay, well, then you're ready to go. But for me, no. And I'm thinking, I've got so many things I still need to do. I mean, I was on days for, on and off for 42 years. So now, how many times can you tell a story? Now I want to tell my stories.
So, okay. So what does that entail? So you're writing, you have a writing partner, and you're writing a podcast, you're writing a film, what are you writing? You're writing a few things.
And in some you leave at a certain place. My biblical story, it's a teleplay, so I looked at that and that looks fine. Now I need to elaborate on it. Now I've got to pitch it. But you know how it is in this business. you can go in with a story, a script, and they will say to you in what you have to sign that they have already thought of this.
Of course, it happened to me.
Yeah. So I'm very careful about that. So I'm going to get I'm expanding my horizons. It's not just about being an actor who's written a few books and has had a podcast. I want to be a producer.
Good for you.
Be able to tell stories that I've experienced and where my imagination has gone. So that's what, what Jane Fonda said one time on a talk show. What keeps you going? She said curiosity. And so that for me is always so that every morning when I get up, I know the breakfast and I know where I'll take it, and I'll take it to bed and I'll watch my news and get my mind going after I've had my 40-minute meditation. But then I have to, once I get off of that, then I say, okay, now I'm ready for other things. So
what does your day look like? I know you used to get up and have water and then meditate and then have your breakfast, which I recall was yogurt, and you had some blueberries, and I can't remember what else you put on your yogurt.
Sunflower seeds and
sunflower seeds. And oh, there was a honey. There was a certain kind of honey that you put on there.
It was an avocado honey.
Avocado honey.
Yes, it was like a burnt honey. It was a wonderful, intense.
And do you still not have lunch?
No.
No lunch.
I mean, like this afternoon, I had an apple and a piece of cheese.
That's not lunch. That's a snack.
That's a snack. Tonight, I've already started it. I'm making a lentil soup. I took a whole chicken and I cut a leg off and a wing. So, and put that aside. Then I take the chicken, I boil it for an hour and a half, 2 hours, and very simmer. And then I take the chicken out and then use that broth as the base of the soup. It's an organic chicken. So I will put in leeks and shiitake mushrooms. I always love shiitake mushrooms. And the lentil soup, or I may do a white bean soup. It depends. And then I can put those ingredients and put some chard, because I like the stems of chard because they're red. And I like when you present someone, it's nice to have a bowl.
A visual.
And it's visually beautiful, right?
Yes.
And I remember I put small pieces of tofu once, and my nephew, who was quite young at the time, said to me, "Uncle, what is that?" And I said, "Oh, that's tofu." He goes, "Oh, it looks disgusting." He was 17 at the time. And I couldn't stop laughing. I thought, I just don't know. It's disgusting. I thought the word was a little bit over the top, but
tofu doesn't look very pretty, actually.
Small pieces. We found out that soybeans aren't very good for you anyway. So I don't do tofu anymore. So
you were telling me before we went on the air that you did your first cooking show. So Seducing Celebrities, One Meal at a Time is back out now in paperback. And so you're on a book tour. So you did your first cooking show. So what did you cook on your first cooking show?
Well, I said, I want to make this easy. I don't want complications. And so they called me up and they said, "What ingredients do you need?" And I said, "Well, let's do a pasta. You cook the pasta, the ingredient, make sure that's cooked. I need olive oil. I need raw peas, pine nuts, shiitake mushrooms, Parmesan cheese, truffle oil, and then mint and basil." So I remember I picked up once we're doing the show, and I thought, oh God, okay. And here I'm dressed up with the jacket and everything. And I thought, well, usually I wouldn't dress like this when I'm cooking. But I said, I picked up the olive oil. And I didn't show the label to anybody because it was facing me. I said, "By the way, I'm not going to use this olive oil because it's fake." And the producers went, I said, "So I'm going to use the other oil I have here, which is avocado oil." And so we had the doctor and the host there, and then she was stirring the shiitake mushrooms, and then I said, so now it's going to be layered, and this is a vegetarian dish. Everybody loves this dish that I do, and I learned that if you're not sure what people eat, I'll do something where it's not with meat, and so the shiitake mushroom cutting thick have a texture that way.
Right.
So I said, so you put the Parmesan cheese, and then the peas and the sunflower seeds, and then some olive oil, and then a little more Parmesan cheese. And then I start going over the different layers of it, and then the Parmesan, you put a little more Parmesan cheese and some and the herbs, and then if you like red pepper flakes, which is, and then put it all together, and then they had people from the audience taste it, and then they thought I should do my own cooking show. I was told when they're coming back, they're going to pitch it.
I love that. You absolutely should. But I think if you're going to do a cooking show, Thaao, I think you should do one around like the dinner parties that you do. Like have your own style of cooking show, because you do these fantastic dinner parties that you invite people to, and you get this eclectic group of people to come, and you make all these dishes that are catered to the people that you have. And so if you did a cooking show like that, it would be completely unique to you.
Yes, you invite people who taste it, who ask. So you do a combination. I would, while things are cooking, I would like to talk about the culture first of this cuisine.
Mm-hmm.
And what is that culture? If we were talking about Italy, or talking about Greece or China, all those different cultures, the Middle East, Egyptian. And then when you finish talking about the culture, you bring in the cuisine. And then you talk about the taste of it and what you put into it, so that it encompasses the culture of that country.
I think that's a wonderful idea.
Yeah.
I hope I get invited back. You invited me sort of I don't want to say the end of the pandemic, because it wasn't really yet, but I was scared. And then I regretted it immediately, but I hope I get invited back.
Of course you're going to be invited back.
What a wonderful thing you do. So, okay. So for people there are many, many friends of mine that are going through cancer right now, different kinds. I know of two people. A friend died of prostate cancer 2 days ago. I know someone else who was diagnosed with it a couple of days ago. So many people these days seem to, and there's a lot of fear, and there's a lot of unknown, and there's like, what do I do, and where do I go, and how do I deal? If there's anything that you learn going through this, it seems to me support was one thing that really got you through it. Is that so?
Very much so. You learn who you want around during those times, because they're difficult times. You don't feel up to par. You don't look very well. You don't want too much noise around you. You can't really be bothered doing too much, but you want those people around you knowing how to nurture, and that's your time. I've had friends for many, many, many years. Some, you discover as they're getting older that they're not encouraging people. But my two buddies who knew or understood, both very spiritual, understood what it meant not to feel, but they said the thing that got them the most, and they would discuss it afterwards, is that I was not a downer. I didn't get into the car I think it's not feeling victimized. So I think the attitude should be, okay, this is what it is. What am I going to do with it? How do I get rid of it? And how do I keep my body healthy while they're poisoning it? So my thing is, before you go to chemo and before you do radiation, I think it's very important that you build the body up with different herbs, like my Chinese doctor would do.
Are you doing herbs now?
I always do it. See, the reason I think I haven't gotten COVID and everybody else around me has, is that for the last few years, I have been working with this Chinese doctor in Chinatown. And what they do there is they make a certain tea.
Mm-hmm.
And that tea is made from mushrooms and all different Chinese medicine. It is different ingredients. And I drank that tea every day. It lasts for 2 weeks if you do it twice a day. I would do it once a day and it would go for a month. And then I would do it again a few months later. Well, that tea was developed because of COVID and also because it strengthened the lungs. So it's so important to find out what is the body you brought in and how it operates. And then find out if there is a disease, if somebody has, like you say, some friend of yours has cancer. So you do some research so that when you're with them, give them some good news. Give them some kind of assist. So that it becomes, it's not just one person going through it alone.
Oh, absolutely.
Because a lot of people are afraid to talk about it. At first, I didn't because of the industry, but then I thought a lot of actors are out there and they've gone through things. And what's changed? What's changed for me is that I'm a lot more, I have a real good mind. I don't forget. I mean, I can tell you history and dates and everything and stories and not forget because I took an interest in it. I developed my brain, the muscle in the brain for memory. I didn't just sit down and bored and eat the wrong food. So it's very important. So if your friends are going through it, I would say, you know what, before you do the treatment, if they're doing the treatment, okay, still see, Eastern medicine and see what they have to offer as well, because you need the combination of both. Absolutely.
Were you able to ask for help? Were you able to receive help?
I didn't ask really. It's like I don't ask people and say to them, well, why don't you invite me over for a change? I just think if it's not there, it's not there. People are not.
But when you were ill, let's say you needed groceries. Did people just offer without you asking? Did you ever feel like you could ask?
Yeah, but I also got what they deliver. During COVID time, there was that delivery service and all that. So that's what I did. But some friends just, because I didn't want to get near anybody in case they had something off.
Right.
So I kept to be careful of my immune system. So they would just drop it at my gate and I would pick it up. And then after a while, my two friends, Ray and Gustavo, they would come here and then after a while because I love to cook. And Ray used to laugh at me because while we're sitting there, he says, what are you thinking about? I said, I'm thinking about what am I going to cook tonight? Well, I'm going to get some chemo treatment. You know what I mean? So it's like life continues. That's why I never played the victim because I thought. You
didn't lose your appetite?
No.
Wow.
Maybe the first couple of weeks, but I love food.
So even when you were losing all that weight, you hadn't lost your appetite?
Well, I couldn't eat because my mouth was full of sores.
Oh.
From the chemo.
Oh.
And the only way I could, it's the reason I lost weight, was drinking those awful drinks through a straw. And I would have to numb my mouth first and then drink through the straw. I forgot about that. That was the worst time, is when the sores start to develop in your mouth.
How long did that last?
Well, a few weeks. That was, and then you gargled to keep them from irritating you. And so you numb them, met with a mouthwash. Interesting, when I see the doctor, he goes, hello there, son. I go in, I'm thinking, I'm older than him. But I said, hello there, son, you're looking really well. I said, let me ask you something, because I remember in TV Guide, they had the actors that were nominated for Best Actor. And I was on the cover with the other actors. So he says, how are things going? I said, well, I got nominated for an Emmy. And he goes, oh, come on. Yes, I said, come on. I said, no, I'm not joking with you. He said, no, don't give me that. You've been nominated? I said, yes. And he said, look. And I showed him the cover and he goes, that's you? I said, yes, that's what I looked like before you attacked me. I said, so So when I see him, because he's so stiff, I try to throw some jokes in, with him. And so I said to him recently, what are the side effects? We never discussed side effects.
Mm,
So you have to prepare for those. They're very important to ask up front. What are the side effects? It's like they give you medicine and you say, yeah, but what are the side effects? Does it affect my liver or my kidneys? What am I doing? So I can prepare it. So those things are very important.
And so are you back to exercising 4 days a week and doing all of that?
Yes, sometimes I'll go only 3 because I'm still in pretty good shape. Everything went back up. You know what I mean? I mean, that was a shocker at first, but once I started doing my push-ups and sit-ups and some weights, the muscle came back and everything just went pop, pop. Here we are. And
That's amazing because, at a certain age, things usually only go one direction.
Yes, well, that's what happened to a friend of mine in Australia. And I said, oh my God, what happened to the kids? And he said, what do you mean? And I said, well, they're looking south, because he never did any exercise to keep his chest. So the memory in the muscle, right back to where it liked itself.
Wow, how wonderful is that?
I do that. So I just go downstairs. I think that's what also was good. I didn't have to go to a gym. I had created all that before. I have a room downstairs and it's my gym. And that's
do you see that thing back there? That's called a tonal machine, and it's actually like a universal. It's a virtual universal machine, and it's weights, and it can do like hundreds of pounds of weight. See that thing? And so I can do all with my arms and legs and chest, and it does all of that.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah.
So I like the way your hair is.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's great. You're looking good.
Thank you.
Good. Yeah.
Well, Thaao, I absolutely, I was a little nervous to see you because I thought, oh, are you going to look, but you don't. You look fantastic. You look better than ever. You really do. You look better than ever.
An old boy.
You look fabulous. And okay, so people, are there any more book signings around that people can come and meet you in person?
No, I haven't. No, I haven't. I just did the one. They wanted in the Valley at Barnes and Noble there. It's a lot of work.
It's a lot of work.
Yeah. So I've done over 100 interviews for my podcast and the book.
A lot.
Some have been, really interesting. The good thing is I like when people are prepared with questions, because I don't want to be the one who keeps giving the information. And until somebody asks me a question, I don't know what I know until they do. You know what I mean? And so I like to be with people who are also exploring and looking at things at this stage of their lives and what secrets have been revealed to them. I think that's also important. I say this to young people, don't be around losers. There's a lot of them. Because they're lazy, because they're afraid. Be around people who inspire you. In my 20s, I was meeting the best people from the Golden.
Jackie Kennedy, you were around crazy people when you were.
John Gielgud and Robert Redford.
Oh my God. I heard a story. I heard you tell a Robert Redford story. Please tell it. when you helped him try on a suit. Tell the Robert Redford story.
Oh, I think people have heard this story.
No, not my people haven't heard the story.
Well, how many times did he try to come in and my boss, Meladondre, was not there? And he would just put his head in and say, is Roland here? And I'd say, no, and close the door. So my boss says to me, the next time he comes in, it's your responsibility to keep him here. I said, okay. So he comes in, I go, oh, by the way, I've got a suit for you. Guess what? So you change the idea. I've got a suit. Roland told me I've got to show you this suit. And I said, there's nobody here, so it'll be private. And I said, I'll close the door so we don't get any customers. He said, okay. And he was not easy. He was,
Ah,
he was a bit aloof.
and he was at the height of his fame, was he not?
Oh yeah,
Yes.
and so he was about my height, and I remember it was a beautiful chocolate brown velvet suit with bone-colored buttons,
Mm.
and he took his jacket off, and I put the jacket on him, and we stood in front of a three-way mirror, and Roland used to cut up high so you get a longer look, and then also at the stomach area for men who had protruding stomachs, the button would fall right there, so it would have a straight look in profile. But when we're standing there, and I would normally, you go up to the top and you come down to make them feel like the shape, So I'm doing this, and I came across a couple of bumps. And I said to him, "You've got to get rid of this if you're going to wear this." And his mouth dropped open, and so did mine. He was so shocked that there was only laughter to go. He
Really?
started to laugh his head off, and I started to laugh, and I apologized. I said, "I'm so sorry." I said, "It's my Australian side where you just call it what it is." And he was very sporty about it. And what I loved about Redford was when I was in La Scala in Beverly Hills years later, he was sitting there with Robert. Robert Redford was sitting with Paul Newman, and Rex Harrison was on the other side. And I
Oh
was with a
my.
friend from Australia who said to me, "Can we go somewhere there are movie stars?" So I said, "Well, we'll go to La Scala." So there they were. And he goes, "Oh my God, I can't wait when I go home and tell people who was in the restaurant." And suddenly Redford and his friend get up. And as he's leaving, he comes past my table, says, "Hello, Thaao, 10 years later. How are you?" I said, "I'm good, Bob. Thank you. It's nice to see you. Looking well, whatever." We did in short talk. And then
Oh no, you froze. Teo. Oh no, you froze. Teo, come back. Oh no. Teo. Ah. Teo. Oh no, that's not a good time to freeze when we're here in the middle of a Robert Redford story. Oh no, Teo. Oh, how did that happen? Oh no. I know, we want to hear the story. I don't know why Teo froze. Oh no, Teo. Oh no, maybe he'll come back in. I'm gonna leave this here for a second and maybe Teo will come back in. Oh my. What a terrible place not to hear the end of that story. Do you think Robert Redford said something to him about losing his love handles? Oh gosh. Well, I don't know if Teo's coming back, but what a way to end the live stream. Oh no, Teo froze. Oh well. Oh well. I'm gonna go call Teo now on the phone. I'm sorry that it ended this way, but what a glorious time we had with Thaao Penghlis. I love you all. I will see you next week with Tom Bergeron. And stay healthy, stay happy, stay positive, and stay busy, as Teo would say. Good night, everybody.